this record has taken a long journey, right? It was recorded 2011, 12. I mean, at one point, I don't even know if it was ever going to see the light of day. I was like, fuck it. And then I got a hair up my ass to start mixing it in 2024. Like I mixed it once. It wasn't that great. I put it aside. I mean, I have all this other shit I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I have a back catalog. Like the Buford stuff's going to come out soonish. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. We'll get into that. But anyways, I recorded Adam and I playing. Adam's playing drums, I'm playing guitar, and then everybody else came in. So it's like there's even one song, the one with Jesse, that was never completed. That's basically guitar, drums, and then I had to get the sax in, and then I put in stuff later. So it thank you for saying it comes out live, like comes out kind of a live sound because it wasn't actually recorded that way.
This is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, this is Kate Clover.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Hi, my name's Madeline Rose.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
It's Tim Howard here from Mike and the Mechanics.
Hello, I'm Amanda Lehman.
I'm Billy Harvey.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Casey Sampson from the band Twist Stop.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Mitchell.
Hey guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
You're listening to Almost Famous Magazine.
Come join us for this interview. Check it out, Almost Famous Magazine.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Hang right here on Almost Famous Magazine. As a matter of fact, this is a special episode. I'm super excited. We're dropping an extra episode because there's a big album coming out that I want everybody to know about. Thank you for joining us on this special episode. And by the way, everyone who's new, please do what you have to help get the word out. Hit the bell, subscribe, all that good stuff. We are growing, and it means a lot to us, and it really helps the artists that appear on The Hang. Plus, something really new and exciting is you can take us with you everywhere you go now. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so many more. You can take us with us, so download us where you get your podcasts. It is always a great hang when I'm sitting here with the incredibly talented king of mid-fi himself, Sharif Dumani, and he spends time with us. You named it, buddy. You named it. You own it. Myself. Yeah, you did. But let me tell you, it's been an incredible year of musical output. I mean, between Sharif's Search of Memory last year, the Exploding Flowers, Watermelon Peacock just a few months ago, and now comes his latest project, People Talk, featuring a cast of members who performed in the likes of the Alice Bag Band, Exploding Flowers, Sex Stains, Red Cross, Love Dolls, Shudder to Think, Jawbox, Sweet 75, and Roddy Radiation. Holy cow, that's a lot. But even more, we get a guest appearance by Jesse Michaels from Operation Ivy, Classics of Love, Common Rider, Doom Regulator. There's a lot of folks on this album. This is going to be a great chance to get to know them all. People Talk are, of course, Sharif Dumani, Janet Housden on bass, Adam Wade on drums, Liam Philpot on saxophone, Jesse Benson on guitar, Dan Collins on organ. Sharif, I got to stop talking now. I got dry throat. Welcome back to The Hang. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this is going to be great. Let's start with the band's origin story. Where did this come from? Because I just, I saw you posting about it just a little bit ago, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is out of left field. What's going on here? Where did this come from?
Yeah. Well, the origin story is in the 90s. Janet Housden, who played drums in this other. So I was in a band called the LA Times. Kind of active from around 90, maybe end of 95, but 96 to, I don't remember, 98, 99, somewhere around there. And I played guitar in that, wrote the songs. So out of this band, it was Janet Housden, Jesse Hart Benson, and myself. And that was called LA Times. And the only reason it's called LA's People Talk is because there's another People Talk. And when Jesse was doing the artwork, Jesse Michaels, Operation Ivy, and Classics of Love, etc., I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna maybe PEEPLE talk, which is so dumb. And he's like, why don't you just LA's? And I was like, that's kind of lame too, but pretty cool. Like LA's Wasted Youth, or a lot of LA's in the front of that. So that's kind of what happened. It turned into LA's People Talk, only due to the fact that there were other People Talk. How to kind of distinguish ourselves. Anyways, the origin story is LA Times was a kind of garage punk band. We tried to sound somewhere between. We loved Crypt Records, which was a garage punk label at the time. maybe Germany, I think, kind of, contemporaries with sympathy for the industry, record industry and stuff. And so we were really into kind of what garage punk meant at that time in sort of like I guess a late 80s, early 90s context. And so we were, our aspirations were to sort of sandwich like a more like a set, like a Richard Hell and the Voidoids meets the Headcoats or something. That was kind of our dream. And so we tried, and I have no idea if we succeeded, but we recorded at a place called the Distillery that a lot of bands recorded through the years. I guess more known bands are like Black Lips and bands like that early on, but a slew of other kind of punk bands and post-hardcore, all kinds of stuff. And so we recorded there for a label, Scooch Pooch, at the time, that had distribution through Sub Pop. And Scooch Pooch was this gym, and he put out like Electric Frankenstein, which later had Rick L. Rick from Negative Trend, F Word, all these kind of classic Bay Area bands, and Bell Rays were on there, and a bunch of bands. So we were really excited, and then we just disintegrated because we were really young. Most of us were really young. Two of the members weren't as young, and the rest of us were kids. And so we were just, we just partied, had fun, tried to be offensive as much as we could, and cause a ruckus and just kind of entertain ourselves more so, just kind of classic kind of kid punk kind of stuff for us. And so that recording ended up just kind of being thrown to the side. And so fast forward in around 2000, maybe 10 or something, started kind of like, I don't remember how, but Janet and Jesse and I had already known each other, and I met Adam Wade already years prior, because he had been living out here, and there was a local bar called the Shortstop that had a lot of mutual friends, so a lot of people intersected in and out. That's kind of where, actually, I think Greg Dooley, Afghan Wigs, was part owner, so he was around all that stuff too, that at the time, and so Adam and I were friends, and Dan had been in a band. Well, see, this is where it all intersects. Dan had been in a band with Janet Housden called The Shakes that Mark from Exploding Flowers, who ran a place called the Impala Cafe, were also in. So all this stuff is sort of incestuous, and Dan was kind of came out of that, and he was also the new music editor at the time for a publication here that lasted quite a while, that had really interesting and great stuff called LA Record. And so Dan was doing that, and then Liam, the sax player, he also was an old buddy that kind of came out of this sort of Shortstop thing. We had played with our friend Mandy, who's a composer now, did a bunch of movies and stuff. But Liam played in a dub band here in LA called Future Pigeon that were incredible. And those members were previous in a band called Whiskey Biscuit. So this might not mean stuff to a lot of people, but this is a lot of LA kind of underground, sort of in the 90s, right? And some of it tails off from the late 80s. And I think Whiskey Biscuit were signed to Geffen at the time too. And it all intersects. And so Liam played in Future Vision, and then later Roddy Radiation recently. And that kind of, from the Specials and stuff, and had done an album, the one that Tim Armstrong from Operation Ivy and Rancid did for Jimmy Cliff. Liam was one of the horn players on that record and on the tours, I think. Yeah, if I get it. And I don't know if that came out on Hellcat, which also circles us back to kind of Jesse. So it's all kind of weirdly integrated. And then the main photo on the album. So this is the album, if I could do a plug. This is the LA People Talk album that's coming out. And Jesse Michaels did the artwork beautifully. And there's various colors, like there's 4 different variants, and so coming out on Recess Records. So we don't have very many photos, but this photo was a backyard party at Dan, our organ player, which you can't see, and Adam Wade, you can't see. His backyard party, it was packed and awesome. And so Allison Wolf from Bratmobile, who we were in a band Sex Stains, is the one who took the photo. So there's a lot of family. And so I'm really happy that this actually came out. I mean, Todd was gracious enough to help me out with releasing it. It's a perfect fit for Recess Records, in my opinion. And it's personally special because so many different characters are, and also the girls doing backup on 2 of the songs were in a band, a really great band called Susan, that were kind of like shop assistants or, that kind of stuff. And then another friend who was part of the 4 girls, they all were in a band called Cowabunga Babes from Texas. And so it has a lot of tentacles and different things. So most people might not know or care. Some might, discogs freaks would, but it has a lot of ties into a lot of different almost generational too. So it's really cool. It's cool that it came out, and it sounds great. I think I'm really proud of it.
Oh no, I've listened to it and I think it's amazing, and I want to get into a couple of the songs. But it's like an LA All Star. I mean, this is literally LA's All Stars.
And a DCer, right? I guess if I can just be quick with the band members, because you had asked about that.
Yeah.
So Janet Housden has a long history. She's a great friend. She's a drummer in LA Times, but a bassist in this. And now she's been playing a lot of sort of more folk stuff and experimental stuff through violin, which is incredible because that was way later in her life. So I just think that is awesome. So Janet she was in Red Cross. She played drums on some of the Born Innocent album of Red Cross. She was in two of Dave Marquis' kind of classic underground films, Desperate Teenage Love Dolls and Love Doll Superstar, that also have a cast of a bunch of people, Red Cross, Black Flag, all kinds of people. But Janet was a Patch Kelly and the character in those. And she had a bunch of bands too, right? Like Super Cools and the Shakes and all these bands. And then Adam Wade was first drummer, I believe the first drummer in Jawbox, and then went to Shudder to Think during their kind of the height of their major label success. And then right when Nirvana broke up, Chris Novoselic did a band called Sweet 75 that Adam played drums in. And then he's done a bunch of stuff since, I think, Film School. He might have played on one of the guys from Pavement's own stuff, and just Adam's he's got his own trajectory of awesomeness. And then Jesse, like I said, came out of the LA Times with me. Jesse Benson, Dan Hart was, Dan Hart. What am I saying? Jesse Arvids. Dan Collins was the organist in the Shakes, and then Liam, like I said, was in Future Pigeon, and then Jimmy Cliff, and most recently Roddy Radiation on tour, a number of tours and stuff like that. And so that's the band, and that's what they came out of.
I'm curious. I was going through the credits, and you've got the writing credits, but I'm curious what each individual's bringing sonically to the overall texture of the songs.
That's easy. I mean, I write the songs and the lyrics and the melodies, bring them to the band, and Adam is a monster. And he's an incredible drummer. He does whatever the hell he wants on it for the most part. I mean, things are guided according to the thing. And honestly, on the recording, nothing's that uptight, right? Like some of it's kind of, it sounds explosive because it's not so, he had parts for sure. We had practiced these things. Actually, we hadn't even practiced that long because we recorded pretty early on in our inception. We lasted a few years, and it was a really loose band. Like nothing was too careerist or any kind of shit like that. That's probably why that's probably why it fails and it succeeds at the same time. It fails for people knowing, and I think it succeeds sonically. And so because it sounds alive, right, in the time. Janet is she came up with her best bass part. She's really melodic. She really, at the time, we all really loved hooks. Janet and I especially love pop stuff, you know what I mean, and whatever that means, like the Muffs or something, like that kind of world of pop. Not necessarily like pop punk in whatever that became, but that pop, kind of. Anyways, Jesse played guitar. He's a buddy, and he kind of, he plays wildly, and it's cool. And then Dan, brought the organ. I mean, and Liam sax. Some of it's guided, but Liam's his own beast too. So everybody kind of just does their thing. There's a framework, and then from there, people splinter off, and it sounds like shit on any of our parts. Actually, I don't even think it came down to being that meticulous, where it's like, oh, that part doesn't really work, it sucks. It just kind of is what it is. So that's kind of what you get on the recording.
Well, so it sounds very live to me. It sounds very in the moment, and knowing the way that you record. I mean, you're not necessarily a Pro Tools guy, and it jumps out of the speakers that way. So I think you definitely get a good flavor from it for sure.
What's funny is I whatever that sounds like is not actually how I record. not how I record. That's a little bit of my mixing magic, I think, and the players, because I think it started. And this record's, if you don't mind, like this record has taken a long journey, right? It was recorded 2011, 12. I mean, at one point, I don't even know if it was ever going to see the light of day. I was like, fuck it. And then I got a hair up my ass to start mixing it in 2024. Like I mixed it once. It wasn't that great. I put it aside. I have all this other shit I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I have a back catalog. Like the Buford stuff's going to come out soonish. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. We'll get into that. Anyways, I recorded Adam and I playing. Adam's playing drums, I'm playing guitar, and then everybody else came in. So it's like, there's even one song, the one with Jesse, that was never completed. That's basically guitar, drums, and then I had to get the sax in, and then I put in stuff later. So thank you for saying it comes out live, like comes out kind of a live sound, because it wasn't actually recorded that way. So that's a compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it has a feel, and I mean, for me,
cool.
When it comes out of the speakers, I've got to have that tingle sensation of like, this is going on in the now, right? And it feels like it wasn't overly processed. It's just in a moment. We're going to get back to the Buford stuff for sure later on. But there's something that's interesting to me now that you just mentioned. So this is a long time coming. And I've got a note here about walking through downtown. And I'm curious if it was written back then, what's that? I don't know. We were 5 then, I think. You live in LA, walking through downtown, and given where you roam, I mean, it kind of takes on an interesting meaning now, given what kind of the climate there now. I mean, it's almost like you wrote something. To me, it feels kind of timeless, given where we are at this point, because it stands up today. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's extremely political. I mean, there's a lot of political songs on this. It's all intentional. I had done a lot of volunteer work for an organization here called Burrito Project, kind of like Food Not Bombs, but without any of the sort of politics. And so they're just people collectively gathering to make a bunch of burritos to then go downtown in Skid Row area and feed people, right? Keep them alive one more day. And most of that is a water desert, right? Almost aimed to kill. And so people need water. In fact, more than food, usually what you hear is they need water and they need socks, clean socks. And so I had volunteered on and off through the years for about a decade, on and off, like I said, when I had time or even selfishly when I felt sad and needed to do something. What better way to kind of get out of that than to be in action to help other people? And so downtown, and it's also my backyard, right? I'm born and raised in LA. It's the least I can do to be a part of my city, especially with such disgraceful politics that don't help, or they come across on the face as funding help, but when you see what's happening, it's bullshit. There's so much wealth here. And so it's a complete social critique on the fact that as our downtown started to be formulated, and that's a more recent thing in LA, right? That downtown before this was absolutely barren. I mean, there used to be, like, for me as a kid, I used to go shows at like Impala, Mark had it, but before that was Al's Bar and all these places, and that shit. The Arts District was a very scary place. Now it's like I could drop gum on the ground and probably pick it up and throw it in my mouth and not get Hep B. You know what I mean? So it's like that kind of thing. And so downtown, as it started to become more and more gentrified, and as it started to become, and I have to say that there are elements that can be good about an expansive place, like diversity of people, right? That alone, just in terms of that kind of thing. That doesn't have to be based off poverty, right? Brown and black people only in an area for economic collapse reasons. This becomes now kids in college, all kinds of people. The problem is that people now, try to profit off this, right? So it makes it almost unaffordable while people are trying to survive. And so downtown is the very thing where you can be in 1 block radius, right? Los Angeles Boulevard or something, or Spray or whatever. And you can see super swank, expensive restaurants. And in a 1 block radius, destitute poverty right there. And yet somehow everybody knows their fucking place. There's something tragic about that. And so that song, Walking Through Downtown, is exactly that. The lyrics are pretty self-explanatory. People turn a blind eye towards this, and it just grows and grows. I mean, I think we're the largest population of homelessness, right? LA. And then there's also Vancouver. And then there's shit like India. This is a pretty, look, in the times we're in right now, I can go on about that, but you got this piece of shit who just burned how much food that could have fed 1.5 million people across the world. So that's where we're at. That's that. And I'm not saying these words as a recent trend, although I should be inflame it. But this is capitalism, right? This is what that is. And so people starve to death, or they don't need to starve to death by pieces of shits who could care less about people. And so this is a critique about, on a more micro level, of my backyard in an area that has abundance, right? In California state that has absolute abundance. And you're still seeing this problem through the decades, and it only gets more and more magnified. That's the thing. It's like that segregation of poverty and rich is just, there's no bullshitting. You can clearly see it in a 1 block radius. And that's a fucking problem. You know what I mean? In a place that has abundance, and more people who get desensitized to this kind of horrific thing while people are dying, or trying to survive. And it's always through the lens of these fuckers, a lot of times, who don't want to see that it's addiction based or it's this and that. And it's just not true. As LA grows and grows and has no cap on rent, more and more people are one paycheck away, if that, families, of being out there. And you've seen the rise of that post pandemic. These are people, and who cares if it's addiction, right? These are human beings. And addiction comes from places. So like that's it. So I could go on, and I'd probably bore the audience, but
let me ask you this,
that's the
because I'm on board with you. I mean, the things that Harry Chapin did before his untimely, the loss we had of him, and what he did for homelessness and feeding the world. Is there, just so we get it in the show notes, is there an organization that you currently, or you have some affinity for in LA, that if we wanted to send some people there so they could help support it, that we throw it in?
There's, what is there? Yeah, there's actually, let me look it up. This is great. Thank you for that. There's obviously Food Not Bombs that has been organizing for decades and decades and decades. That's it. And the reason why I mentioned some of these places like Food Not Bombs or Burrito Project is because it's not, although that's also a challenge, right? It doesn't have maybe the popularity to have the fight, but on a micro level, these are just regular people who can volunteer without all this kind of crap. I know that, funny enough, there's that I Love You, which is Jaden Smith, right? Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. As much as people want to make fun of celebrity, and I personally hate celebrity. Celebrity, the idea of celebrity is really toxic. That's how we have Donald Trump in a lot of ways too. But look, if you're gonna have celebrity and you're gonna do shit that's not just PR based, fucking respect, right? You have this money. So there's I Love You restaurant, or I Love You food truck, and now I think a restaurant where that kid has started this thing that basically homeless people can eat for free. And the whole idea is that people who can pay it forward. And so that's one thing people can kind of get involved in. There's the Feed the Streets or Beyond the Streets that also is in LA that I'm probably getting it wrong. It's either Feed the Streets or I think it's Beyond the Streets. No, it's Feed the Streets. What am I saying? Beyond the Streets is like Beastie Boys related. Feed the Streets. Feed the Streets. All these things kind of get cross-wired. But
I didn't expect the Beastie Boys to be part of our conversation today, but
neither did I.
Well, here's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Here's what we'll do. Afterwards we're gonna get some of these links. We're gonna drop them down below. Cool.
Awesome.
Pre-pandemic, I used to every month cook about 2,500 meals myself to feed people who are very undernourished, and we live in a day and time where we do have a ridiculous amount of wealth and those who can't afford to put one meal on the table. So let's do what we can. I think it's important. Awesome. And again, going back to walking through downtown, I mean, the situation's only amplified, but you hit it on the head back then. And now I think the timing of this release, in my opinion, if you're gonna go start with a track, go listen to Walking Through Downtown and give it some serious thought. I'm also curious about Anything You Want. Tell me about that track.
I'm trying to rewind back in time. That was kind of more just that there's a Poison Idea record called "Record Collectors Are Pretentious Assholes," and so it's got
No.
a little, yeah, and so it's got a little bit of that where people profiting off of I guess, yeah, people profiting off of other people's loss in some level, right? Like a lot of, yeah, just sort of I'm trying to, just,
Well, I mean,
I mean, Discogs.
I mean, anything you want. It's interesting because when I looked at the album and you had it listed under punk, I got this punk pop feel and the voices, and it's got this really upbeat feel to it.
Yeah,
Yet
for
it's
sure.
got this other meaning. So I mean, it's that it's really the production on it's great because it's almost, there's this duality to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This upbeat, bright, positive kind of sound, but then there's the message. So
those are the girls all like in the band Susan and Cowabunga Babes all doing that along with another song. Yeah, I think I think that the death of any progress is binary thinking, right? To think that you have either this choice or this choice, which means you have no choice at all, right? And so the fact that you could have an emotional melody be bouncy, and then have the subject matter being is such a wonderful, playful juggle, and they can all sit in various spaces and be just as impactful without having to be so brooding.
Yeah. I didn't note if you've put out a single or not, but what I'm curious about, of the 9 tracks, which one means the most to you?
Yeah, let's see. I don't think about these things, so that's great. It just means the most. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think maybe I don't know. This is some Libra shit now, right? Bing, 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 bing. Cat sides. It's all meaningful, meaningless. I think walking through downtown. Yeah, that's. I mean, that would probably be one of them for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's appropriate track. It's an appropriate track for sure. You mentioned, before I move on to some other stuff we're going to talk about, you mentioned there's going to be multicolored vinyls. Like what, how's this whole thing packaged up? Where can people find it? Let's make sure that they're out buying it.
Sure. They can go to recessrecords.com or Recess Records Bandcamp. There's a link on my own Instagram, the THEEE Exploding Flowers, or Exploding Flower. Yeah, and there's four variants, 50 each. It's a small run press, 200. So who knows if it'll be reissued or what happens. But there's a yellow, there's an orange, there's a lime green kind of, and then there's like a black and white splatter. So those are the options in the pack. And then this is here's one of them, yellow. Here's Jesse's kind of artwork in there as well. The labels, there's, like I said, picture, lyrics, credits, blah blah blah. Jesse's artwork, and I think it came out beautifully. I think Jesse's an incredibly talented artist outside of a musician, and you know how I am with having a lot of fun with musicians who are artists, and then having them coaxing them to let me use their art for my music. I'm eternally grateful to all these people. And I'm, that's, I already have the Exploding Flowers record. The next one's almost being done, and the artwork I just got from, so it's just like,
well, yeah, I mean, you just pre-answered my next question. I mean, 3 albums in under 2 years. And although this one's been sitting around a while, what's next? Obviously more Exploding Flowers, I guess.
No, actually there's a Christy from the Flesh Eaters and Divine Horsemen, and Larry Schemmel, who was in Death Valley Girls, and the brother of Patty Schemmel from Hole. And this guy Johnny, the 4 of us have a record that's coming out. I think it's tentatively set for Halloween or around there on In the Red, and so it's going to be under Christie and the Poison Fang Society. And so that's the next record that I recorded and that I play bass and then some guitar on. So that'll be that I'm trying to. I mean, my dream except for the self-editing that I would be having to do, unlike him sometimes, would be like a Robert Pollard from God of the Voices, right? Like you're having like 6 records in a year. So far it'll be 4 in a year and a few months.
You know, it's interesting because I talk to a lot of like young bands and young artists who are like, you know what, this year I'm going to put out a single every single month.
Yeah.
Sharif is going to put out our album every single month. I think that's like probably one of your goals is one day we're going to be like every single month we're going to have a Sharif episode because there's a new album dropping every single month.
I mean, yeah, that's the waterfall method. That's all this digital marketing crap where they do that to have an IP address linked to the same thing. So that way the numbers seem high by the time their album drops. Right? This is all kind of the industry nonsense, but it works. And that's why I fail and everything. But I'm going to die, right? We're all going to die. Like I want to do the best I can and output, because a live show, even though that's really that's wonderful and it feels good for the ego, or bad for the ego depending on the moment. After 5 years, do you think anyone gives a shit? Maybe, but they got a record's gonna keep on and can be searchable down the road too. That's what I hope. Unless everything, obviously, unless we, we become perished, the entire country.
Right, unless we all turn to glass. But let's move on to something a little more positive, shall we? I'm of all the people I can ask this to, I think you've probably got some of the best perspective. And we're not going to dwell on, we covered punk rock bowling this year. We covered punk rock bowling last year. We're not going to get into your punk rock bowling stories, but it feels like punk is going through a really transformative period, almost like a new renaissance, right? There are a lot of bands experimenting with genre combining, finding ways to stand out that's kind of turning punk on its ear by about 90 degrees, mixing things up. What are your thoughts on the current state of pop music or punk music and a lot of the output that's coming out that's kind of different and really creative? Because it just seems like a lot of really good creativity is coming from this area, and there are other areas of music that are kind of lying a little flat.
I don't know. I don't really. I mean, I buy bands of all kinds. I don't sit in only the punk genre space. In fact, some of it's really goofy to me. It's not entirely. I love it. I don't want to dismiss, because it's easy for me to dismiss things also, just because of a mood swing. But obviously, punk gave permission to do things. But it's not the only space I sit in, and nor is it the only space I ever want to sit in. Right? There's so much music in the world. It's like there's so many more tools than just a hammer, right? And why would I just use a hammer for every single thing? It doesn't make any sense. It's boring too. And so I don't really know. I buy records still from punk bands, but I buy a lot of records from all kinds of shit. And also there's things that what is the meaning of it anymore, right? There's stuff considered punk and this is shit that just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like the emo word, right? Like, what does that even mean anymore? And maybe it's not for me to know. I did buy something recently, like, and it's totally generic hardcore. It is like Youth Crew rip off of Youth of Today. And that's why I bought it, right? The Illiterates. It's a great band from Philly, hardcore band that Starry State Records put out. And I have 2 of their records, and there's a new one that's just coming out of pre-order. So shit like that is, it satisfies like a mood I'm in of wanting to hear Youth Crew stuff from, like straight 86, 89 Revelation Records, kind of almost kind of straight edgy stuff. But I'm also buying, a Gene Clark Demos record that has like drum machine on it. So I don't know. I guess if you were meant to mention some bands more specifically, that would help me direct that, like answer that question.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you heard of Pinata Protest?
No.
They're out of San Antonio. They are a Tejano punk band, and they are incredible. And they're mixing Tejano and punk together in a way that just, it feels fresh and new and different, and it's helping them stand out, right? And even going back to seeing some of the bands of punk rock bowling this year, it just seems that there are a lot of people really experimenting a little bit more in punk. It's not as formulaic as other genres right now.
Interesting. I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's a lot of cumbia stuff that was mixed in with punk in the last few, like, maybe decade that people were doing. That's cool to hear. Doesn't mean I'll trust you on that, but just because the fusion of stuff still doesn't mean it might still not be good, not that bad. But I see a lot of punk through my lens that is all super the same. Like, there's what I love about punk, at least in LA through my lens, is that now it's not so as the story unfold like goes with like white suburban. But I do, and as a Latino, I see a lot of like actually I see a lot of all kinds of things, right? Whatever the Latinx umbrella is. Also Filipino hardcore. I've been seeing that lately, which is really cool because my daughter's part Filipino, and so shit like that. But some of the bands that I see with this, even though I love that that's happening, and that's a sect, right? Doesn't mean everybody. They all sound the fucking same to me personally, to be perfectly honest. There's a number of bands that all kind of mime already a hardcore that is, and that's cool, right? I'm telling you about the Illiterates record, this Juicy Youth of Today. There's nothing right or wrong, but an overwhelming amount of very similar speeds, tones, even content of lyricism that might not have its own either originality or whatever into it. It starts to kind of bleed to this. It's a wash to me. That's me, right? And that's at the moment. Some kid hearing it for the first time, it's brand new to them. It's awesome. It's so cool. But yeah, so I don't know.
Well, it's just an interesting time. I mean, there's a band out of Houston that they're a Norteña Tejano band, right? And during the pandemic, it's called Easy Band, and during the pandemic, they did a cover of an Adele song, and they are ripping it up. They got 500,000 followers on Instagram alone, and they are doing Anglo songs, more like English language songs in that style. Everything from, you name it, from Taylor Swift to AC/DC and Led Zeppelin, and they're doing all these different tunes, and they're bringing in a whole new audience to kind of their sound. And
Cool.
and it's really incredible to watch, right? I mean, I love live music for the experience of looking around a room and seeing like the looks on people's faces and the joy that it brings to them. And they played here in Dallas, and it was incredible to see that they're at the Longhorn Ballroom, classic venue that's been reopened, and just to see the audience really, kind of. They were like Velcro to it. It was amazing. And,
Awesome.
it's good to see that there are people willing to do things that are a little different, take some risks, as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over again, right? So,
For sure, yeah.
All right. So, I told you before we started recording, this was going to be a Giz Laszlo free episode, but you brought up Buford. And the last time we talked, I had a question from Giz about when there's going to be a Buford reunion. What is this about Buford reissues? What's going on there?
So I think Lewis and Giz, because he's such a fan of the band, have kind of been working this, and actually Mark too, to his credit. He's in foreclosure, but Mark Maxey's got a lot of history. He was in a really a cool band called Justice League that were like they were kind of, I think, part of that whole Positive Force, maybe not, but and Art, which Brian Baker from Minor Threat played on. So it's 80s kind of melodic hardcore. So Mark has a hand in this, I think, as well. And so they kind of had this idea a while ago that I shot down just because I'm very far from this music. But in time, Lewis got me. Actually, I have the Buford reels from way back, some of them. So they gave me a mix of stuff, and I listened to it, and I listened to it trying to be not to be too judgy on myself, and when you grow up on vinyl, it's a weird thing. I've never not put out something since I was a kid, right? Whether people had heard it or they didn't. And we had some people, people care. Some people care. I don't know how many, but so I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is okay. I'm not so embarrassed by it. There were a lot of influences from bands like Husker Du and Jawbreaker and Snuff and stuff like Dag Nasty, things like that. And so, it sounds, it's a good band. I mean, the musicianship's really great. Vocals are the things that I start to get sensitive about. with myself, especially as I was a kid. I was a kid. I was just out of high school. You know what I mean? And those guys were all older than me. And so, anyways, the more I listened to it, the more I was like, "That's kind of cool." And Lewis sent me some flyers of all these bands we played with at the time, Naked Aggression and Potato Men from Lookout Ridge, all kinds of stuff. So it brought back a lot of memories, and it was really, really cool. And so as we talked, we start moving forward and trying to get this discography of everything, and we have quite a bit. I think there's I don't know how, maybe 18 songs, and we put out 3 singles at the time, and various compilation tracks and stuff like that, and so that's the talk right now, that we're gathering all the material right now. The thing's already mastered, it's already done. Now we're gathering the material. I have to think of the artwork for it. I want it to look good. That's obviously like a really big important thing to me, that the thing's presented in a way that's cool, right? Like, and so that's the next phase. I went to go see them recently for closure with Pegboy, which a band I really love. Naked Ray Gun before that, and that's where Lewis and I talked about really kickstarting it and moving forward with it and collecting. Like, he's got so much that I'd never, really, all these flyers, lots of reviews and snips from Maximum Rock and Roll, all this stuff back in the day, and so we're gonna gather that and make it cool, and hopefully put it out sometime somewhat soon, maybe next year. I don't know when, but it's all
maybe
being
it'll be
worked
one of your dozen. I don't know.
out. I hope.
or maybe, you know what? Maybe the first, maybe you'll do a baker's dozen, and that'll be 13th.
Maybe. I hope.
But you'll make Giz. Yeah, look, as long as you make Giz happy, he needs joy in his life.
He does. I agree.
I'm gonna make sure that all the links are down below for
Cool.
everything from the charity to provide to, so we can help them out, as well as for the new album. But like, I don't know, you and I, like, the best part of these conversations ever since we did the first one are like, this is just what you see on this screen is a smidge of the Sharif Dumani record archive. So we're gonna go through some stuff that Sharif's listening to, and it's always music worth checking out yourself. And as we always tell people, look, you got to support artists. Please go buy stuff. Invest your money wisely, invest it in music, things that you can have for a long period of time that bring you joy and happiness, and that you have an experience with, right? And it's hard to have an experience with a digital stream, for what it's worth. We have to support artists these days. It is getting harder and harder just to bring together the money to bring you all of these great recordings. So please, participate by supporting artists. So, what'd you bring today, Sharif? I can't wait to see the artists and the albums.
This is where I completely hijack your show. I really, truly hijack your show, not just an accidental cutoff.
And for what it's worth, last night I was at a show talking to one of the guys, because look, I'll just say it here because this will commit me to it. We are going to do an episode, something around like the 5 albums you're going to rip from my cold dead hands, or that I'm taking to the grave. We're going to do it. I'm going to get together. It's a little challenging, coordinating 3, 4, 5 people, but we're going to do it.
Yeah,
so now
sure.
I've said it. It's going to be out there. I'm committed. We will make it happen. But you know what, Sharif? Take it away from here. It's all yours.
Yeah. So this is going to be more than 5, but I'll be quicker. So I started thinking, you're right. I like a lot of shit. I'm an avid music listener and buyer, new, old, all kinds of stuff. We both are. That's kind of our bond here, which is really beautiful. So thanks for always having me on. I really connect with you in that way.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I figured maybe in context to this record, right? This band that we had and that's coming out. And so we were really, at the time, we were really influenced, like our real, like, we were scooping up I remember Janet, myself in particular, especially, just, and Adam, just like Australian stuff of the late 70s, early 80s. Like, it was very, very Australian focused, right? Like Australian punk rock and roll. And there's so much great, Australia still is such a rock and roll place. Look at the stuff that's coming out. It's just a wealth. Its history is just seeped in in rock and roll, punk rock and roll, whatever kind of rock, hard rock, just so good. And so this is the stuff that we were inspired by in forming LA's People Talk. And so this is a single. It's a reissue. Some of this stuff is super expensive, like if you find the original, and impossible to find. But I really love this band from '80. Fun Things. What a great band. Just a really kind of in the Saints world, but still with a little bit of a '60s kind of hangover, but in the punk context. Another Australian band of that era, Muse. It's incredible. Dirty Lies is this single. Another just classic Australian punk band. Let's see what else. There's the biggest influence, I think, for us at the time were these two Saints records, the second and third one in particular, because they had horns. And they used horns really, really great, like almost like in a Memphis horn style way or a Stax kind of way, at least the idea of it behind. So that's what made them not just punk, but punk rock and roll, which was the focus of. That's why there's melody and stuff. It's not punk hardcore, it's punk rock and roll, like what, its origin is. This particular Celibate Rifles record is great. I love the song Bill Bunny Regrets. That song was a huge, I love a lot of their output, but that particular song is a huge inspiration on LA's People Talk. And unfortunately, there was a song that never got recorded of a few songs that we never did that were in that direction. That was a big thing for us too. Cosmic Psychos, although we don't sound like them and they're not directly this wave of punk, that was noisier and it's just an incredible band, incredible record, great documentary actually on them too. This is where the melody side of things and the Ramonesy kind of way, like early Celibate Rifles, but the Hard-Ons, classic, great. But this particular record, which I think collects their first couple singles maybe or somewhere, I think like that's the collection, but such hooks, They always had records that fused like a little bit of metal and then super Ramones. This is just all Ramones, just all bang, just like 3-chord hooky ass songs that rule. Classic record also, Radio Birdman. It's just like another one that's sort of the true Detroit by way of Australian connect and also in sound, in that sort of post Stooges kind of thing. This is on the more melodic side, kind of sometimes Ramonesy, but more mid '80s. Exploding White Mice on Waterfront, legendary. Actually, it's on Big Time. But anyways, great stuff. And then I think the band that started it all, to be, in my opinion, even before the Saints, that kind of, I think they call it Sharpie or something like that was the genre, but it's all kind of like early mid '70s hard rock. Like the same thing as the English stuff with like the Dr. Feelgoods, that kind of the pub thing that inspired the punk in reality, and garage stuff of the '60s. But really, it's these bar kind of like back to the raw thing.
Those pub rock bands, yeah.
Man, that's you want origins of punk? They're stemming from that. Just by a year or two before, they put the fucking umph in that and the street rock to it. So Colored Balls, like this is a classic record, Ball Power. But this is where, to me, this is where that Aussie stuff, I mean, along with AC/DC and bands like that, but this is where that element of the Saints and all those bands start. And Radio Birdman, it's with bands like Colored Balls that do not get that credit of that thread. And this shit is like, so we don't, we're a little hookier because I always have a pop line. There was always like a band like the Nerves looming in the background, and or sort of like the, I guess the '60s or '70s power pop homage there, but there's some garage stompers on the People Talk, LA's People Talk record, but it's directly inspired, or at least at the heart of it, with these bands. Like we owe a lot to these bands for inspiration. So just wanted to shout out those bands.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, beyond AC/DC, you say Australian music, and people are thinking everything from Rick
Men at Work,
and Kylie Minogue, Men at Work. But even though it's not the largest place on earth, there's a ton of music coming out there and really creative stuff, and
totally
certainly worth paying attention to. So.
Yeah,
for sure. No, great choices, and everybody. I mean, this is one of the best parts about hanging with Sharif. I mean, you get to learn about other bands. He is the historian's historian on how all this stuff is tied together. And it's really a joy to kind of have you expand the musical universe of myself and other people who are watching. Cool. So I really appreciate that.
Hope
and
so.
we will get to an episode where we're just talking records. Trust me. I got the people picked out. I just got to find the time. But we're going to do it for sure. Sharif, this has been great. It's always a joy.
Thanks so much, Scott.
We tried to keep it Giz free, but unfortunately he has weaved himself into both of our lives. And you know what? Hey, why not? Right? Everybody should have a little Giz Laszlo in their life. Sometimes you say things and you think about them as you're saying them. You're like, maybe, but Giz is a special kind of guy. So I can't wait to talk to you because I think it's probably going to be maybe sometime in October. We're definitely going to do this again. We're going to have a great episode just on records. I wish you the best. I'm definitely going to find a way to get this in the hands of people because I've heard it. Everyone should hear it. This is a fun album. It's great. And it's thought provoking, timely, actually, after being recorded so long ago. And I think people are going to connect with it. So Sharif, as always, buddy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll do this again soon. For everyone else, Hey, thanks for hanging with us. Sometimes it's a little nonsense. Sometimes it's a little history lesson. You never know what you're going to get, but you're going to get something on the hang. So thanks a lot, everybody. Bye for now.
Take care.